Hi, everybody. Today I'm actually going to share with you how I made this animation in Rive, where character can basically move down, move to the right, move to the left, then move up. This looks a little bit complex, but I'm going to try my best to actually break it down as clearly as possible within Rive. So let's get started. Now, in order to get something like this done, the first thing you actually want to do is actually, because this is like something standard in games, particularly when you're talking about all these 2D games that is just made up of like pixel arts, from like, all this Sega, and, Mario and stuff like that. So it's basically something that people have actually done before, but people use other softwares. Funny enough, people use Lua scripting, LUA scripting to actually achieve something like this using other programs like Love 2D and all that, and then they have a way to actually like make all these things happen. And there was this system where they would basically like use what we call like a sprite sheet, where they're going to expose our sprite sheet to the game engine, and they're going to write the code in such a manner that everything loops perfectly. The idea is actually not from me. The idea is something that's already been existing in gaming, so I just decided to see if I could actually do this with Rive, and try to see whatever limitations, and how I could overcome it. The basic thing for me, what I actually really wanted to do was, have my character move, and I wanted it to move, and then the movement was realistic. Now, in order to do this, there are two layers to the logic. First I need my character to be able to move. Next is I need to be able to make the movement realistic. Um, Here's what I mean. So let's say, for instance, let me just quickly do something really fast. I'm just going to go ahead to create a new file, and just going to make this 500 by 500. And then let's say, for instance, I have my rectangle. Like, it's a different thing for or like, let's say, for instance, yeah, so I have my rectangle, moving, right, on, you know it's a different thing for my rectangle to be able to move like this. It's also a different thing for my rectangle to be able to change to different, poses, as I'm actually trying to move. Now, this is all looking complex. Like, I'm just going to try as much as possible to actually break it down, for you to actually get it. So the logic is, to the first thing you want to do is you want to be able to get your box to move. Second thing you want to be able to do is you want to be able to you want your box to be able to switch from, switch. Let's say, for instance, it's basically the same logic. If I have like what do we call it now, a star. Let me try and draw a star directly on top. Yep. And I'm just going to make it, into red. And then I also have like, circle. Oh my god. So I'm going to make my circle like, green, so we can just see it. So it's basically the same logic. I want, my D-pad to be able to move this, but I want it to, as it's moving this, I want to be able to circle between the box, the star, and the circle, such that it creates like, that realistic, kind of loop. So, and basically that's like, what we did, you know in uh in that game. So I'm just going to quickly go ahead to show you how I actually like made everything actually work, so you could also like, do the same for your, game, whatever it is that you're actually trying to build within Rive. So let's just get started. Now, in order to do that, the first thing you want to be able to do is, just the way like I like to teach Rive. I like to teach, you need to ensure that you get the basic things done first. Flesh out like your basic logic, and when you're able to flesh out your basic logic, you're then able to like build up top of that to get the desired results that you actually want. So how do we get our box to move, and how do we get it to change? Right, the first thing we also want to be able to do is we need to create our joystick pad. Now, so first thing you do, just come over to the rectangle tool and just draw your pad. Just going to go ahead to like add a little bit of corners to this. Then I'm just going to zoom in and zoom out, and then I'm just going to duplicate this by pressing Alt and dragging. Yeah, so I'm just going to try to duplicate this also by pressing Ctrl D on my keyboard, and I'm going to try to rotate this by coming to the rotation over here and pressing 90 degrees, and then I'm going to have to switch this a little bit up top and bring it here. So good for me. I already have one in that direction. I'm just going to press Alt to bring the pad in the other direction. So very very simple to actually like make a D pad. All right. So that's it. So we need to rename our rectangle to know which is which. For instance, this is our up button. Up button. Good. This is our down button. This is our right button. Apologies for left button. And it's very important that you name your files so you don't run into problems. So okay, good. So now that we actually have all that set up, the next thing we actually want to do now is that we want to make this into some sort of controller for our set of box. So what we want to do now is that we need to wrap all this into what we call a solo. Right, so I'm just going to select the ellipse, the star, the rectangle, and I'm just going to wrap into solo. Right, such that we have we can easily basically switch between that. And what that does is, because I'm able to quickly switch between this, I'm able to control this using like a number input from my on my view model. All right, so let's set up our d-pad. What I need to do is I actually like create some listeners. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm just going to come to data, select. I'm going to create like booleans. I'm going to create like four booleans. All right, so what I'm going to now try to do is that I'm going to I'm going to make this up boolean. Start with small letter. Up boolean, standard naming convention. Up boolean. Then I'm going to make this down control. Okay. I should, instead of like naming it boolean, I should just name it down control. Right, and I'm going to name this um right control. Then I'm going to name this left control. Good. Now, so when you're able to do this, you're able to already like you know you're ready to get your stuff moving. So the next thing we want to do is that we want to create a number such that we'll call this the solo number, such that one thing about solo is actually that you can use a number inputs on your let me say solo control, right? You can use a number input on your view model to drive your solo. And here's what I mean. So let's say for instance I come here and data bind um, my solo to a solo control. What this does is, let's say for instance I try to preview my data and I come over to affect the number. Notice how it switches. So the number, depending on how many solos I have, how many objects I have within my solo, is going to determine what. Let's say for instance now I have three objects. Notice that at zero, my 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 solo is activating the first object, which is the green circle. If I change this to one, it's going to activate the next object down the line, and if I change this to two, it's going to activate um, a box, right? And then of course you you could have you so by the time you make this into three, it stays at the box because there is no other object, assuming there's still another object here within the solo, you'll be able to switch to that. But because there's no more objects that you can switch to, as you can see, we only have three objects there. You can't go beyond. So it starts from 0, 0, 1, 2. So it always starts from 0. Right. So there are other ways you can try to like use to manipulate this to keep switching between um the shapes, and that's by using what we call like the modulo converter, and I'm going to actually get into that in detail like very shortly. But for now, just know that you can actually drive your inputs using a solo. Now, so when that is done, what do we need to do next? What we need to do next is actually just come around to our what we need to do next is actually come around to our so we are already like we've already created these booleans that will control like our the movements, right, of our objects. And the reason why we we made them into boolean is going to be quite clear in a bit, because we could have just used a trigger. And basically if we used a trigger, what would have just happened is if we press this, when you trigger this, right, but the reason why we're trying to use boolean is actually because we want to be able to detect, when we press this button down, such that it's going to read for a specific amount of time, and it's going to read for a specific amount of time, and it's not just going to click and stop, then you have to click 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 click. You probably like spoil your mouse or whatever. All right, so the next thing we want to do is to switch to our animate mode, where we are actually going to go ahead to create a listener, and then you come over here which is like quite like yeah. So create a listener, and you're going to make into view model change. So because you want it to do some changes on your view model, and notice that because we actually had our down button selected, it's automatically speaking to is the target of this listener is our down button. So I'm just going to create two, and the reason why I'm going to create two is actually going to be very obvious in a minute. So I'm going to duplicate this. Oh, sorry. I'm going to try to duplicate this. All right, down button. I'm just going to leave the name down for now. Then I'm just going to create another listener, view model change, and I'm going to duplicate it. Then I'm going to my left button and I'm going to create a listener view model change, and I'm going to duplicate it. Then I'm going to do the same for my right. Then I'm going to duplicate it. All right, so let's duplicate that. So once I've actually already like duplicated that, the next thing we actually want to do is set, our we need to set our uh, our listeners to be able to listen to when we press these buttons down. So how do we catch that, in Rive? So the first thing, let's start with our up button. So the first up button, we need it to detect when our pointer is down. So pointer down means when you press your pointer down, when you the name is like so counterintuitive. I don't know if counterintuitive is a word, but it's weird. Pointer down is like when you press your cursor, when you press your when you click down. That's what it means. When you click and hold, which is you know interesting. So when we click down, what do we want? We want our up control value to be set to true. However, when we our pointer is up, that is when we release our pointer, we want our up control to go to false. Then so we are going to up button, so I'm going to name this as up button on. Okay, this is going to up button on. Then we're going to do up button off. Good. All right, and then we're going to change this to off now. Good. So I'm going to. All right, so let's go. So for down button now, we need to set it to pointer down, and set value of down control to true when it's on. Then we go to down control, set it to false when pointer is up. All right, so very important. So on this little thing that I did, really like, it took me a lot of time to figure out. All right, so off. Good. So for on, pointer down. Sorry, no pointer exit. Pointer down, and for left control, we need the value to be true. For off, let me put it beneath it. Pointer up. Then we need to set the value of our down control, left control to be true. Then for the right button, we're going to say right button on. Good. Since change is pointer down, I wanted to say our right control value to be true, and then right button off. Good. And we want this to set our right control to be false, and that will be pointer up. So basically, so if we try to play this, we notice that when we press this down, you know, it activates our down control. When we press up, it activates our up control. When we press right, it activates our right control. When we release, it goes off, and on and on. Okay, our left control has some issues, so let's check it. Panel up, panel down, left control, right control, panel down. Okay, we're good. Let me try again. Okay, left control, left button. Oh, okay, pointer on a button. All right, I'm just hoping I didn't make any mistake because my left button is acting funny. My left control is acting funny. So if you're watching this right now, I just made an update, to my Rive, and it's it's showing like this tab, and there's a lot of things that has actually changed. Alright, so in order to not get ourselves like so I just will go back to testing my stuff and see if we have something correct. We still don't have something correct, which is wild. Left button off, pointer up. Oh, can you imagine? I didn't set button to false. Oh my god, I knew something was off. Alright, so we are good. So yeah, basically we're good. Now that said, the next thing we want to do is we want it to happen that as we're pressing this, we are actually moving our our box. Now there's a simple way to do this without using code, right? And the simple way to do this without using code is basically to set up like set up like it's going to be like a tricky way. So it's going to be like what you're going to do is you're basically going to like set up an event that fires, right? And you're going to set up that event when it fires. You're going to you're going to it's like an old but like an archaic way of doing things. Like um when the event fires, you're going to tell it to add a particular number to this box position here. But that has a lot of limitations because it's not going to be able to allow us to press down, right? We won't be able to press down, and because basically the reason why scripting is our best option is we need the time um the the number of seconds we press this down. We need to be able to get that time and say, okay, this is the time we press our button down. So as we press our button down, we want to be able to we want to be able to get that time and then multiply that time with a set velocity, such that our scripting will be able to calculate the distance we are going to be moving depending on how much of how many seconds we press down our button. I hope this actually makes sense. I did not want to confuse us. So I resolved that I'm going to definitely go through this in batches because I would want to like break down my script and share with you how I was able to put the entire script together such that you are not just saying you know you're not just saying like a script that is actually already done. You're saying the step by step process, and it's not just like, oh, super reliant on AI. And it's not bad to rely on AI to get things done, but it also helps if you actually have a proper knowledge of what you are doing, such that you're able to correct AI, because AI at this point is actually currently still struggling. But this is a framework of bedrock of having the I mean, the objects move, and you know, uh, basically how the D-pad controller actually works. In the next part of the tutorial, I'm actually going to, you know, share with you guys how exactly I put the script together and how I was able to get the actual time and multiply that with a given velocity for the movement of our character. See you in the next tutorial.